Laura Schindler, and I'm here with Jen and Leigh, and we're going to talk about Rama Ramaswamy's recently published book, Coming Full Circle. So welcome, Jen and Leigh.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about yourselves, and Leigh, how did you meet Rama?
Well, I have known Rama for quite a few years now. Our children attend the same preschool, and through school and various volunteer projects that we had going on, we became friends.
Oh, terrific. And Jen, what about you?
Like Leigh, we're friendly through our children's activities. Our kids have been in school, and we've been fortunate enough to be friends last few years.
Oh, terrific. Rama wrote a book, a poetry book. That's so exciting. I was so excited to see it and to read it. So tell me, what did you think when she told you she was writing a book?
I couldn't believe it. In fact, I remember the day that Rama told me because she had emailed me or called me to have coffee.
Yeah.
So we met, had coffee, and she said, "Did you know I published a book?" And I said, "I did not know you did that." And so she explained to me a little bit about what it was. And from there on out, we went to the event at the Wellesley Booksmith that was for the opening event for her book.
Yeah,
and it was a great surprise.
That's great. It's interesting because it's a poetry book. So Jen, she said she was going to write a poetry book. What did you think?
I think she's capable of so many amazing things, and it didn't surprise me, yet it did, because she actually is so talented in so many different areas.
Yes.
And yet, if anyone was going to publish a book on poetry, it would be Rama. Would be the one to do it.
Jen, were you surprised that Rama had written so many poems previously?
It was amazing to see the depth in each of the poems that she had and the variety of subjects. So that was truly amazing to imagine she had accumulated this in such a short period of time.
I found it very interesting, the names of her poems. And the poems were so integral. What did you think? Did you have favorites? Tell me what you think.
Well, I thought, first of all, knowing Rama and reading these poems, it was so full and rich, and the vocabulary alone was just amazing, and it painted so many pictures in my mind. I do have a few favorites, although I loved many of them, and I loved how she used science and nature within her poems and related it back to life experience for me, and I could identify with a lot of those poems.
Rama has a science background. Did you know that when you first met her, that she had such a background in science?
No, I didn't. As Rama it's interesting. Every time I talk to Rama or see her, something new about her life pops up, and it's always so interesting. So I had learned that obviously before she was published, but I thought it was just a very interesting way to bring that background into her poetry.
Yeah, I found it very different. The poems were so completely different and so integral, and you really had to stop and think. Jen, what about you? What do you think?
I found myself looking at the selection of words that she used so purposefully. And the first time I read her book, I read it one or two poems at a time. And then the second time I read it, I read a number of them together. And it was very interesting to realize when you read more than two at a time how science-based they were, and yet the words she used, which are primarily used in a scientific manner, were also so emotional within her poems. So it was a really unique blending of different styles, which was very appealing.
Yeah, not your average poetry book.
No.
Tell me, do you have a specific favorite?
I have a few favorites.
Oh, good.
One of them is it's called Superhuman, and I think a lot of women and mothers can relate to it. I can read an excerpt from that. It's actually the last part of the poem, and it says, "Park your invisible plane, replace your one piece Your light shines more brightly than the red, white, and blue, Wonder Woman. It's not easy being you. And so this poem really, I felt like I could identify with, but also really made me feel like a little closer to Rama as a friend, to know that she, even though I look at her as superhuman, she still feels those same feelings that every mother feels. And to know a little bit more about her as far as how her children, her life, her busy life, to know that she can sit down and actually put those words onto paper in such a beautiful way. I really enjoyed that.
Jen, do you have a specific favorite?
I do. I really enjoyed her poem, You Come First, which I could identify with my eldest child. And particularly the last bit of this poem reads, "Of my heart with you, you know it too. I don't need anyone for the first clue in that I love you. It doesn't matter to me what you don't do. You will always be my first child." And I loved the way she described her experience being the first, all of those things with her first child, which is a really special relationship.
And I think that a lot of mothers can relate to that, and fathers as well. But I do find that one really hits home with myself as well. I have 4 children. How many children do you have?
I have 2.
You have 2, boy and girl, or?
One of each.
One of each?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Jen, what about yourself?
I have 3 ladies.
Oh.
So
Well, and was there a specific poem that really caught your heart? Was there one of the poems that you really felt as you were reading it that you could identify with and almost not even have to critique it all the way through, just say, oh, wow, I really see myself in that?
There's quite a few poems that I could relate to, as we've talked about previously, but within different situations. I mean, part of this book talks about her love of her children, which everyone can relate to. I think a lot of the emotion in of the other poems is anger, frustration, despair, and so that doesn't just go with motherhood, that goes with being human and in love and in a relationship. And I think it was Detritus that I really, really liked as well. And I felt like it made me look at myself, not look at such in the present moment, but view how my life will be in 10, 15 years. How will I look back on my life? And it just gave me a lot of positive reinforcement. I can read an excerpt.
Sure,
if you
that
want.
would be terrific,
Okay.
yeah.
Discarded dresses, books, jewelry pieces, all garnered with relish in days gone by, price tags fluttering in the wind, summer weaves, rendered null and void, so much clutter, junk, or dreams. I wonder what'll be the tag on my forehead. Am I pushing too much, hoping for values where and when they don't count, don't exist?
How would you characterize the style of Rama's writing in this book?
I think she writes in the same manner as a personal memoir. You sense a lot of her own emotions and feelings. However, I'm not sure if all of it is 100% true, which it may be, but it also allows you to apply your own life to experience your own emotions as you're going through the poem, which is really a unique experience.
Yeah, she does talk a little bit of it being personal and fiction melded together. Do you have a specific one you'd like to read?
In terms of, I could identify with Hidden Hungers in terms of the challenges as a mother and a wife and a professional, and just looking at waking up each day and getting through it and smiling. So I thought she did a wonderful job of explaining the challenges that many of us go through, particularly summing it up in the end when she wrote, "None of these ring true, but the dreams, the hungers continue. Get up, push it, push the envelope, they say. But I'm happy dreaming, starving day by day. This is not true. This is make-believe, they say. I know. Does it matter anyway? It's all mine, make-believe. My hungry, my happy day. I'm happy daydreaming, imagining away. Consider me on some other planet.
Oh, how lovely. Rama took a lot of time and effort and heart and soul into this book. And I would love for her to write another one. What would you like her to do differently? What did you think of the length of the poems? Should they be a little longer? What did you enjoy most about this book that she could carry over into her next book? Hopefully she'll write another book.
Well, what I enjoyed is just the fact that it's poetry, which I don't find myself sitting down and reading all that often anymore. And I was able to rediscover how much I enjoyed that, how much the rich vocabulary, the rich use of language, the use of nature, how that's all compacted into one poem, whether it's considered a long poem or a short poem. There's so much information in there to process. It was actually difficult for me at first, and I found myself rereading it, which was actually a joy because I found something new every time I did. So I would love to see more poems from Rama. I thought the length of them was varied, but that was a nice variety as well.
Jen, what about you?
I really enjoyed the process of having to decipher some of them. And I think they were short enough so it wasn't so overwhelming that you became afraid and stopped reading it. You were just curious enough to want to understand what it all meant. And I think the length of the poems was just right to allow particularly women who are busy, who don't necessarily have tremendous amounts of time, or men, to sit and ponder poetry for hours and hours. I felt that it brought a lot of personal satisfaction to work towards understanding it without consuming so much time that you stopped.
Had either one of you read a lot of poetry before? Is poetry new to both of you?
I'm an English major, so
wonderful.
I had read some poetry, although I must admit I haven't been reading it as much recently. I read it with my children, but it was very refreshing to read this poetry and to identify with it in so many different levels.
Age appropriate for this book. What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely think that the poems, for the most part, are geared for adults. But I think that's refreshing, and I think that's great. So I love the fact that Rama has even brought in, we talked a little bit before about the use of nature and science, but she's also brought in some of her poems, very culturally relevant things that are happening in now. So it felt very current to me as well, which in poetry I've always found, when I used to read it, seemed to me very, not outdated, but was from a very long time ago. So it was hard to relate to that. So I think her use of current, even some politics in there, some Nike slogans, that made me feel like, okay, like she gets what's going on in this world, and she gets this age group. There are some beautiful poems that children could read, but I really do think it's more for adults, and I think that's a nice thing.
She even mentions the Borgias in one of them.
Yes.
I mean, so it's interesting, and I think it really lends itself to all different types of readers, of all different types of categories. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it lends itself to a more mature audience, and so I also think that a lot of her struggles are not something a younger audience would be able to relate to. So it's more poignant. I can identify it much more in the position of life I'm in now than I would have even as a recent college graduate.
And I tend to
Yeah,
agree with
I
that
agree
as
with that.
well. I think the vocabulary, most people would be sitting there with a dictionary and saying, gee,
What
I
is that?
remember what that word was. But it really gets you to think. I found myself, oh, excuse me, okay. Her poems are so integral that you almost have to read them several times to get them,
Yes.
to really get the depth of them. And I agree with you as far as a mature audience goes, but I think that for both men and women, they can relate to them.
Absolutely.
What about your prospective husbands? What do you think? Would they pick up the book?
Yes. Yes, definitely. And I think, again, what this style has offered me was just a feeling of accomplishment and just reading a few pages and not having this novel hang over my head, but knowing that I could go back to it at any time and never be bored rereading it and always finding new meaning from it, depending on the experiences that I had that day or that week or the year before or 10 years before. So
Yeah.
I think that would lend itself to, my husband being able to appreciate those same values in the poetry.
What are your thoughts on that?
We actually, as I was reading some of these poems to prepare for coming here today, my husband went through and read several of them, and he was marveled by Rama's accomplishments, and he works with her in the science education at the elementary level. So he, of course, completely identified with a lot of her references
Oh,
to
that's wonderful.
all of that. So but I definitely feel it's appropriate for all men and women.
One of the things that I think is terrific is that Rama, the proceeds from this book are going to breast cancer. And that just hits home with me big time. And your thoughts on the fact that all the proceeds from this book are going to such a wonderful cause?
I mean, it's marvelous. It again speaks to Rama as a person. She's a beautiful person, and the things that she has accomplished are beautiful. The cover of the book is beautiful. The poetry is beautiful, and the end result is that it's just a great thing that what she's doing, and it really makes me even more. I feel like knowing that makes me feel more connected to the poetry.
Yeah. What did you think of the cover?
I thought it was very interesting. With the title of the book, it was very interesting. For me, I expected a little bit more of a religious overtone to it. It's beautiful. It's very peaceful and tranquil.
Do you know that she took this picture herself?
She told me that after the fact, yes. I said, this is a gorgeous picture. She said, oh, I just took that. I think I was standing on the beach in New
just happened to
Jersey
take it."
somewhere. Oh, of course.
And everything comes so easy to Rama. At least it appears that she's just so graceful. One of the things that I find most fascinating about Rama is just how well-rounded she is as a person and as a professional and as a mother and a wife. And she just is able to do it all so gracefully. I just feel that a lot of that does come out in this book. What are your thoughts of the overall picture of the type of person that would love to receive this book as a gift, which it makes a wonderful gift, as well as somebody that is maybe ill in the hospital, or what are your thoughts on who you would love to give this book to?
I had actually given it to my mom for Christmas, and she's a breast cancer survivor, so I found it particularly appropriate to not only support Rama, but also to give some support to my mom in terms of enjoying these beautiful poems. And I have also given it to several other women our age who have been impacted by breast cancer. So I found it to be a lovely choice to purchase something that I knew was benefiting the greater good, while also the individual who would be the recipient of the book would be able to benefit from reading these poignant, thoughtful pieces.
Oh, very well said. What are your thoughts?
Actually, I did. I purchased this book for my best friend because we're pretty much in the same place in life. I've gone through so many circles with this woman, and I gave it to her for her birthday. And I thought, you know, there's one poem in there, and I don't recall the name, where it talks about, I related to, and I actually thought of my good friend in that while reading that poem. It talks about sitting at the table, making fun of French men, sipping iced teas, and I thought, oh my goodness, you know, that I can relate to as well as being a friend. So I purchased it for my best friend, and she loved it.
Oh,
she absolutely loved it.
That's terrific. Jen and Leigh, isn't it wonderful that we have such a wonderful, inspiring poet in our neighborhood, our friend? And Wellesley is very lucky that there's so many wonderful artists and writers, and that we can support them. You can purchase Coming Full Circle at the Wellesley Booksmith and Amazon.com. Thank you very much for joining both Jen and Leigh and I hope you're able to enjoy this book as much as we have and purchase it for your friends. It's going to a great cause. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.